Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Friday, August 23rd. This is Gina Palma. Winds will be increasing again across the Great Basin over the northern half to two-thirds of the region Saturday and Sunday, with the strongest winds on Sunday, especially over northern and northeast Utah into Idaho and Wyoming, where wind gusts will exceed 35 miles per hour at times. The cold front that moved through yesterday brought cooler temperatures and higher humidity to the northern half of the Great Basin. However, temperatures will be warming, with conditions drying out over the next few days. Over the last 24 hours, we saw thunderstorms mainly affect the central Idaho mountains and parts of Wyoming. We did have some light amounts of precipitation, generally below a tenth of an inch, with some of the heavier rainfall that did occur was up into Montana. Looking at our Great Basin fire activity, only light initial attack yesterday across the Great Basin. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen precipitation mainly target the northern half of the region and really has been very spotty and associated with thunderstorm activity. However, recently we had very dry conditions over the northern half and western half of the Great Basin, with no precipitation reported in many areas over the last 2 weeks. This really has had an effect on our fuels, as ERCs have continued to climb across the region and are now above the 80th to 90th percentile over all of Utah, the Arizona Strip, and into southern and eastern Nevada. These areas would have been impacted by monsoon moisture, which has largely been absent this year and has only affected the area for brief periods of time. Therefore, conditions are well above normal for the time of year. Even up north across Idaho, even with the cold front that moved through, ERCs only dropped a little bit and are still above the 70th to 80th percentile. Looking at our current ERC charts, you can see how far above normal these ERC conditions are. Into Wyoming and eastern Idaho, ERCs are still above normal even after the cold front moved through. And over really all of Utah into the Arizona Strip and southern and eastern Nevada, ERCs are hitting record levels for the time of year because of how dry things have been associated with the monsoon. Live fuel moistures continue to trend downward and are near to below average across the Great Basin. Also, 10-hour fuel moisture is still very dry across the southern half of the region that has not seen much moisture recently and has increased a little bit up north across Idaho into northern Nevada, but will be on the downward trend here over the next few days. The satellite loop from this morning shows the area of low pressure that pushed the cold front through the region yesterday is now exiting and moving into the northern Rockies. So we will still have some breezy winds further south over southern and eastern Utah into the Arizona Strip, but not quite as gusty as what we saw yesterday. So if we look at the weather pattern for later today, you can see how that area of low pressure tracks further east, again with the only breezy winds down south and no high risk issued for today with low to moderate fire potential. Relative humidity has increased quite a bit across Idaho and Wyoming and will remain above 20% today. However, is still into the teens over the southern half of the region with driest conditions over southern Nevada and eastern Utah. And again, you can see those winds, the image on the right, showing those breezy winds over the southern and eastern half of the Great Basin, but wind gusts should be between about 20 and 25 miles per hour. Looking at conditions on Saturday, we will see those winds start to increase over northern areas of the Great Basin as areas of low pressure remain well to the north. So we do have some high risk as relative humidity will be dropping across Idaho and Wyoming and northeast Nevada. Also, some of these areas, especially across Wyoming and parts of central Idaho, have seen lightning recently, so we could see holdovers being stirred up this weekend as conditions dry out. Relative humidity on Saturday will be dropping back into the teens up north and remain in the teens further south. And you can see how those winds are now increasing again over the northern areas of the Great Basin. Most of the gusts in orange are between about 25 and 30 miles per hour. So we will see those westerly winds really increase over northern areas. On Sunday, we will see the area of low pressure drop into the northern Rockies, so we will see those winds increase further west across the Great Basin, so we have a larger area of high risk for those stronger wind gusts on Sunday over much of Utah and into southern and eastern Idaho, Wyoming, and over into eastern Nevada. Relative humidity will remain in the teens region-wide, and you can see how those winds increase on Sunday with the strongest winds across the Uinta Basin and also over southern and eastern Idaho into Wyoming. These wind gusts, again, will be strongest on Sunday with wind gusts 35 to 40 miles per hour, and in some areas may see stronger wind gusts. So again, currently we will be looking at the potential for holdovers through the weekend, but also on our current existing fires, we will have impacts as well from the wind. No precipitation expected across the Great Basin over the next few days. As we go into early next week, we will see that area of low pressure track further east into the plains, and this will allow the winds to finally decrease across the Great Basin with generally low to moderate fire potential. That will continue on Tuesday with drier conditions. By Wednesday, we'll start to see some moisture work its way north into Arizona and New Mexico, and may even clip southern and eastern areas of Utah. So we could see thunderstorms push back into parts of the Great Basin in Utah as early as the middle of next week. These thunderstorms would be on the drier side. Right now, they look fairly isolated as models are continuing to push the moisture a little bit further east, but we will continue to watch this. And then by Thursday, we could see a little bit more lightning activity over the eastern half of the Great Basin as well. Right now, conditions are looking on the dry side, so we will be looking at the potential for the return of dry lightning possibly by the middle of next week. You can see a couple of those pin drops on the 7-day precip, again accounting for that return of moisture next week over Utah. So we will be watching that as ERCs are at record levels, so very unusual for this time of year. So that return of lightning, even though it will be late August, could be very problematic. Looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, which takes us into the end of August and the first week of September, shows warm temperatures and that return of moisture now over western and southern areas of the Great Basin. So again, we will continue to watch that as we may have an uptick in fire potential initially and possibly could see some deeper moisture work north, but we'll be watching that. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.